I feel that Inglewood is changing, from the businesses that are taking hold to the customers to just the people walking around. Like it's changing. I'm not scared of it. I'm only scared for the people who can't change with Inglewood.
Yeah, I think it's just the beginning of gentrification in Inglewood. I think there's more to come. It's just a tip of the iceberg.
You have to have a balance between personal interests and community interests. I think you need to put people over profits. And what we've witnessed here in Inglewood is the opposite. It's profits over people.
Over the past couple of years, I've seen Inglewood get different restaurants, different shops, different customers. Restaurants like Five Guys and Chipotle, they don't fit in Inglewood because that's the kind of food we would say we have to go to the mall for. And now it feels like Inglewood is turning into a mall. The setting is changing. Every day they're working on a different street, a different light post that didn't work back then, different potholes. Well, it's every day I see it now. It's that common. And it is different than back then because they were never fixing it maybe 10, 15 years ago. I've seen apartments that are way nicer than the surrounding apartments. I've seen old stores being taken down and new stores coming up like Gap. That makes me feel like before the news of the stadium and all the other plans that they're doing, that we weren't wanted, we weren't interesting, we weren't, we were just another low-income community. They didn't fund into as much. But now it's more just to make a profit. It's positive if it's more our own communities improving and attracting these other businesses, but it seems as if they're just gonna move us out.
So Inglewood's seeing a phase of gentrification. Um, we're seeing a lot of developers going in there, purchasing homes and basically selling it for a higher profit. The problem with that is that it pushes out low-income residents of Inglewood. Traditionally, people that have lived there for many decades, several generations, sometimes they're used to the city, the culture. When you have developers moving in and repricing neighborhoods, it brings in a different demographic. Several years ago, 2012, 2013, you can buy a house in Inglewood. I saw stuff selling as low as $200,000, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. A lot of $300,000 homes were available before the stadium announcement. As soon as the stadium was announced, we saw those prices jump to 500, 600. Right? A lot of developers moved in and started fixing those up and selling them for maybe 7 or 800,000. I think the next 5 or 10 years, you'll see homes, and you're seeing that kind of now. You'll see homes pushing $1 million, just like they do in Torrance.
Corporations started to buy the single family homes and they started to buy multi-family unit apartments, whether it's small duplexes or triplexes or bigger apartments with 20, 30, 40, 50 units. And they were the ones that were gun-ho about raising the rent. And when I say raising the rent, I don't mean 3% here, 5% here. I'm talking about rent gouging. There's a difference from your landlord raising your rent a few percent versus rent gouging. The increase is so high that you're no longer able to pay the rent. It's no longer affordable. So a lot of the corporations, these corporate landlords, seen it as an opportunity to make millions and in some cases billions of dollars in a community where no one wanted to invest. And you can look at what's going on in New York, in Atlanta, in the Bay Area. It's the same thing. It's happening. So it's intentional. So we have to be intentional to fight back against it and say, hey, we don't want this to happen this way. The permanent rent control ordinance in Inglewood is not actually permanent. And we found this out the day that they voted it in, it's going to sunset in 5 years, which means by 2025, we will no longer have the rent control ordinance. Even though it sunsets in 5 years, it's still a victory, but we can't get complacent. We're not going anywhere. And I'm not just talking about Uplift Inglewood, I'm talking about housing, advocacy groups throughout the state. We're not going anywhere. We're going to continue the good fight, and we're going to make sure that we're on the right side of history.